So, how to manage expectation. This is a critical topic that's often overlooked because people just don't seem to value the notion of your expectations, because expectations are just mental things, pictures, the ideas that you have in your mind before you start an activity about what you want to achieve, where you want to get to with an activity, and where you feel like your life's going to be in a year or a month or a week if you're impatient. And there's been times when I've started my own activities and I've had expectations. In fact, with almost all important activities, you will have expectation about what you hope to achieve. I can think of three key ones for myself: the gym, clubbing, mind control. And all three of these situations at the start, I had an expectation, and your expectation will almost always be unreasonable and unreasonably high. So, for example, with gym, I thought, in a few months I'll be buff. And that became more like, for 3 years, I wasn't even, nobody could tell I even went to the gym. Only recently now, making it almost 3.5 years since I started working out, have I started to put on muscle mass significantly. And that's after, so many other parts of my life coming together that weren't even to do with the gym. And that's stuff I've already talked about, like, for example, mind control. If you do mind control, then you can, feel good, your cortisol will go down, your testosterone will rise, and then you'll be able to put on more muscle. And, these things aren't even related to the gym. And how would I have even known about any of this at the start of beginning to go to the gym? So that's the gym. Another example I have is with clubbing, and this is always a funny one, but when you join uni, a lot of people they think, I'm gonna have sex with 12 girls a week, I'm gonna go to the club, it's gonna be great. And I'm sorry to burst any younger people's bubbles, but that's just not realistic. And this one is like, you really believe it because you hear all these rumors and all this shit about uni before you go, but it's just not true. And probably the third example I can think of with myself is mind control. Mind control is, the thing I always talk about because I say it's super important. And even then, I think that's still a bit unreasonable of me. And even my own expectations with mind control were unreasonable, because when I first started mind control, I thought to myself, every second of every day I'm going to feel great, and I'm going to be in this continuous state of flow and action, and I'm just going to feel good all the time, and all my problems and worries and lack of self-esteem will go away. And this is sort of a problem where there were and there are huge results from mind control, but often these expectations you have are unrealistic. So this is why they're important. It's fine to have these high expectations, but if you have a dip in your performance, so since last Friday, so for 5 days, I've had this very, very large dip in my mood mentally, and that's it's had an impact, and it's almost like you're in an economic recession, but as a person, you're unmotivated, even some old habits are starting to come back, which I hadn't even seen in months, and I was unmotivated and I was skipping things, and that was just the physical side. Mentally, I was just, obsessive, intrusive thoughts, old mental problems that hadn't even been around for a decent while. Existential crises, my swallowing problem that I've talked about in the previous video. These things all came back. And, I just, when you have such a high expectation for something like mind control to just completely improve your life, and then these issues just roll around, you feel super unmotivated. You feel as though your whole life, you've just wasted your time, everything's pointless. Mentally, you just crash, and that's why these expectations are especially important with a mental activity like meditation or mind control, because those activities are specifically targeting the mechanism of your body which is pulling you back, i.e. the mind. And so you have to be wary that you're going to become very unmotivated and you're going to feel like the activity's pointless. And yeah, you just need to watch out essentially for this, because, how are you supposed to know as well if this is actually true or not? Is your mind lying or is it true? And mind control doesn't really work. And, how are you supposed to know? And so there's certain things you can do to mitigate this problem. And the first one is definitely to set realistic expectations. So, first of all, if it's something like the gym, you'll be more able to find information online. How fast have other people done it? How quickly can you actually build muscle? This is useful because then you know yourself if you're growing or not. Another thing is, remember that, people are different, and how hard you personally are willing to work also factors into your results. So if you know that you're not working very hard in a certain domain, then you're going to get results much more slowly than other people, and vice versa if you are a harder worker. I'd say another important thing is progress pics. Now, obviously, everyone associates this with the gym, and you can't really take a progress picture of your brain, but there are certain things with other activities. I mean, I don't need to go into how you can get progress at the club. That's an obvious one. The gym is, again, an obvious one. Just look at yourself, weigh yourself. People will tell you things, but people still don't know this, and so it's important for me to say. People will just be unmotivated. They won't see results for a week, and they'll just be like, yeah, it's pointless, I quit. But it's such a shame, because you had a motivation to start a really useful and healthy habit, and you just gave it up because, you just didn't see results quickly enough, and I think it's really just a shame. Now, the big topic, how do you record your progress and know if you're improving mentally? This is a tough problem, because I face this problem. I am facing this problem right now because, right now I'm experiencing this mental dip, and what you notice is your mind is continuously telling you, oh, we need to give up. We need to find a different method. We need to think about the problem, what's going on. And your mind likes to start on these kind of rambles and just these loops of thoughts talking about a problem. Your mind will just sit there and be like, okay, we need to think, why are we suffering? What is going on? Why, and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's useful to have these thoughts, undoubtedly. Sometimes you do need to think about the problem and whether you're doing the right things and the right activities. But often, with mind control particularly, the most important time to do mind control is when your mind is meta thinking. So, I made this term up, and what I mean, it's probably already a term, but what I specifically mean when I say meta thinking is there's times when your mind, you're in a downward spiral, you're suffering, you feel like the activity is pointless, and your mind is telling you, we need to think about this problem. We need to think. That's the key. Your mind is trying to make you think. It's not just a normal, thought, you try and quiet it. No, your mind is telling you, you need to think about the problem. And this is often those times when you get caught in those like thought cycles of just thinking about a problem and just putting yourself down and just not feeling good and just feeling like everything's hopeless. And these are all the thoughts playing in your mind. And with mind control, if you can effectively control your mind when you're in these situations, this is the most critical time to do mind control, because this is the situation where if you were to control your mind in this downward spiral with all of these negative thoughts, then you've won. You've literally won against your mind, because your mind has thrown everything it has, every negative set of thoughts, every problem it can create, every fake perception of reality it can generate, and it's thrown that at you, and you've just said, no, I'm going to just stay firm and level-headed, and I'm going to continue controlling my mind, because my mind doesn't control me, I control it. And that is where you will grow mentally to a significant degree, is in those situations. Because imagine, it's like, because you don't realize it, but you are actually the mind. And that's sounds like a load of spiritual rubbish, and it's just not something I want to really debate or talk about. But if we take this idea, just take it on the surface level of you are the mind, then by controlling your mind and just saying, no, I'm not going to fall for these thoughts, I'm just going to stay level-headed, I'm going to continue to exert willpower and control and not listen to these thoughts, then the mind is improving, because the mind is able to control itself. Now, I don't know, that probably doesn't make any sense, but what I'm really trying to say is the mind is being controlled, and since the person controlling is technically still the mind is actually improving. So by controlling your mind is essentially improving in the quality of thoughts, in its perception of reality. And that's important. And because obviously when you push on like that and you improve the quality of your mind, you can see how most of your growth is done in those situations where your mind is essentially wrestling with you for control. And I think that's the key insight from today's video, is to manage your expectations, you need to continue essentially pressing on as hard as it is, as much as you don't want to. You need to just keep it simple. Press on with the activity, even if your mind is saying a million things, even if you, which means your thoughts essentially, are sure that it doesn't work and that it's hopeless and that you should sit down and have a think and that you failed and all of this. You need to just push on.